Broncos, who surprisingly finished last in the division last year at 5-12. Many had high hopes, including me. I remember I had sipping that Gatorade. I forget. I think I had them outside the playoffs, but nonetheless,
you had them outside. I actually had them as sneak in as the seventh seed. So
it's okay. A lot of people had high expectations of the Broncos. They definitely did not meet those, and they were really quick to punch the button to eject Mr. Head Coach Nathaniel Hackett. He is gone, as well as Chase Edmonds and guards Graham Glasgow and Dalton Reisner, and then also let go of defensive end Draymond Jones and cornerback Ronald Darby. They did bring in Head Coach Sean Payton, who's already, as of today, he's already been throwing shade at Hackett. I don't know if you saw that little quote. And then also they brought in running back Samaje Perine, wide receiver Marquez Callaway from the Saints, so maybe someone that Sean Payton is familiar with. Tackle Mike McGlinchey, they paid him good money, got him from San Francisco. Guard Ben Powers from the Ravens, and then also grabbed defensive end Zach Allen, who was pretty solid in Arizona, and also defensive end Frank Clark from the Chiefs. And then no first rounder, because that was part of the Russell Wilson trade. That went to Seattle. In the second round, though, they did grab wide receiver Marvin Mims Jr. out of Oklahoma. So some new energy, new blood with Sean Payton. I know you really wanted for the Cowboys. He ended up going to Denver. And obviously, the big question is can he help bring Russell Wilson back along and make these Broncos relevant?
Yeah, I'm a really big Sean Payton believer. I heard him once describe like his philosophy on the game when it was like a year or two ago when he was still doing the media stuff. I guess it was just last year. He only did for 1 year.
Took a year off.
Yeah, so it's just last year. Whenever he was doing it, he was on some radio show and they were asking about Joe Burrow. And this, I think, was in the early part of the season when the Bengals were kind of struggling. Like, you're coming off the Super Bowl and they lost and they're not looking as good and all this kind of stuff. And they were asking him about like the play calling for the Bengals, and he said that he believes that like the Bengals need to add some more layups into the offense. Like obviously Joe Burrow is a really amazing quarterback, but he said that his belief as a play caller is you want to make life on your great players as easy as humanly possible during the game, so that when the really hard moment does step up and like you have to face that challenge, that they have the energy and the ability and the confidence that they've built throughout the game to like conquer it. As opposed to if you make them instantly starting the game have to go through all these really difficult things, it just kind of like mentally wears you down and it becomes a lot harder to do it later in the game. And like that seems like a really obvious concept for like certain positions, right? Like you think about, you have a guy like Aaron Donald. You don't want to send him against triple teams every time. You try and set a stunt so he can go one-on-one against the weakest offensive lineman. Like that's the point. You want your best guy against their worst guy so that your best guy can go out there and dominate him. You see that with receivers, so people moving them around a lot. But it's just kind of interesting that like some teams don't necessarily do that with their quarterback. Like you're not making life as easy as humanly possible for them. And Sean Payton has proven that he did that a lot with Drew Brees and the Saints. Drew Brees consistently leading the league in passing yards and completion percentage and all these crazy stats. And I think that's obviously a result of Drew being, a Hall of Famer, one of the best to ever do it, but also a result of the offense doing as much as humanly possible to make life easy on him. And that led to, Michael Thomas leading the league, and everybody criticizes him for being slant boy. But I mean, if the slant's open and it's working, why would you not do it? So I say all that to say that I believe, and Sean Payton alluded to this in his comments earlier today. I don't know if anybody wants to go read it. He was throwing some shade towards Nathaniel Hackett and the previous regime, but there was a specific part where he said, and this is in reference to Russell Wilson, he said, it wasn't just Russell. He didn't just flip. He still has it. What he's saying there, obviously, is that everybody's blaming Russ, and they're saying he's washed and blah, blah, blah. And I agree with him that I don't think that that's the case. I think that Russell Wilson was, playing at a Hall of Fame level for a very long time, and I don't think that just 1 year you come in and you just fall off a cliff like he did. Maybe he is regressing a little bit, but I think that with Sean Payton there to kind of lift some of the load, that I think we'll see a successful Russell Wilson. Will that lead to wins? Will that lead to them dominating? I don't know. We still got to see what happens on the defensive side of the ball. They get rid of Bradley Chubb and, some of these other pieces, and Javante's got to be healthy, and who knows about the offensive line. There's a lot of other question marks, but that said, I do think that Russell Wilson specifically will play better than last year. So I don't know. I don't foresee them being better than either the Chiefs or the Chargers, but I do think they'll be better than 5-12. I could easily see them go out there and win 8-9 games, maybe compete for a wild card spot, depending on how healthy they are and things can go. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see how it works with the Broncos, but I think that getting Sean Payton was probably one of the best things they could have possibly done, considering you're all in on Russell Wilson. Like, you can't, if this fails, like, you've lost so much in terms of trade assets and years that it's going to take to rebuild, and the amount of money they committed to him. You have to keep going all in. Like, they've already dug the grave, and if there's anybody that's going to pull you out of it, I think it was probably going to be Sean Payton for, the coaches that were available. So I like the addition of Sean Payton. I like some of the moves they made in the offseason with like Mike McGlinchey, the running back depth of P. Ryan. He's a proven veteran who has stepped up when Joe Mixon has gone down. I like Zach Allen. He was finally having a good year for the Cardinals last year. Frank Clark was proven. So I don't know. I like the Broncos offseason. Like I said, I don't think it's quite enough to jump them over the Chargers or Chiefs as of yet. But I certainly think it was a step in the right direction. And if they can prove themselves this year with at least a decent season, get close to 500 or even winning, then I think we could see the front office go even more all in the following year.
Yeah, it will be interesting to see, because people forget too, their defense was for the most part of the year one of the better defenses in the league. So it's just,
yes.
Remember, I think there's that stat where I think if they just weren't able to if they had gone just to 16 points, they would have had a couple more wins. That's how
that. That was a crazy stat to start the year. I can't remember what the exact number was too, but yeah, they would have. I bet if they averaged 16 points per game through a certain stretch of that year, they probably would have had a winning record. So, which isn't saying a ton, but that's still crazy.
Yeah, and considering that they already had some good weapons, I know they lost Tim Patrick, but Jerry Jeudy, who this could be a big year for him too, because he really doesn't seem to have found his footing consistently. And then Cortland Sutton came back, but then it wasn't the same Cortland Sutton from before. Obviously, everyone knows Russell struggled, and then unfortunately, Javonte Williams got hurt. And then they also had released, I think, Melvin Gordon right midway through the year, I believe, before Javonte got hurt. So it looked like Javonte was finally going to be free for all the Javonte Williams fantasy owners like myself, and obviously John, because John was a believer of him coming out of the draft. And then he unfortunately gets hurt. So I am with you. I think Payton will make life easier. It's obvious he's going to have a little more emphasis on a run game, but as we all know, he is very good at very Shanahan-esque building off of the run game. And then even if the run game isn't working, he has creative pass concepts, and obviously he knows what he's doing, like he already alluded to with some of his comments and the success in New Orleans. So but AFC just in general, I'm just gonna say this will be very tough when we have to do our season predictions. This is one of those teams where I'm like, man, even the Chargers were I'm already thinking ahead to that point, but those are two teams where I'm like, but they could be on the outside looking in, or just a few things fall their way, they could be right in the driver's seat and not really shock people, but have a good season. So, I'd be very interested to see the offensive transformation under Sean Payton, and maybe who knows, maybe the year off could have been bad for him. Who knows? I'm just speculation, but who knows? But unlikely.
And I will say, which, I'm not going to give a prediction here or anything, but obviously, the Chiefs are clear, but like you said with the Chargers, maybe if Kellen Moore is who I believe he is, maybe the unfortunate injury bug persists, or, what have you happens to the Chargers, the run defense is still an issue. There could be a world that if Sean Payton really is the guy that I'm hyping him up to be, and Russell Wilson truly isn't washed. I mean, think about some of the fits, right? Of Cortland Sutton. he reminds me so much of Marquez Colston from back in the day with the Saints. And Marquez Colston was a really solid receiver under Sean Payton, so maybe Sean can unlock him. You talked about Jerry Jeudy, hasn't quite found his fit. If Sean can like really unlock the offense and Javonte comes back healthy and is like fully free, I mean, there's potentially a reality out there that this Broncos team could be even better than the Chargers. You never know. You never know.
Yeah, I mean, they have a good base, and it's just going to be obviously Sean Payton and obviously can Russell Wilson. It's I'm not saying this as a caveat, as a cop-out, but his third offense in 3 seasons already. And, after being in one place for so long, we'll see if he can make another adjustment on top of his previous one from last year to the Sean Payton offense. So that is the Denver Broncos. That is the AFC West.